It was a cold February morning in 2018 when Officer Daniel Hargrove, a 15-year veteran of the Riverton Police Department, walked into the crowded diner on Main Street, his uniform crisp and his badge gleaming under the fluorescent lights. He carried himself with the kind of swagger that comes from years of unchallenged authority, his eyes scanning the room for anything or anyone out of place. At a corner booth, sipping tea and reading a worn paperback, sat Evelyn Carter, a 62-year-old Black woman known for her quiet demeanor and unassuming presence. Hargrove, for reasons no one could fully explain, decided she was the target of his frustration that day. With a smirk, he approached her table, accidentally, tipping his scalding coffee onto her lap. The diner went silent. Evelyn didn't scream or curse. She simply looked up, her eyes steady, and said, "You'll regret that, officer." Hargrove laughed it off, unaware that Evelyn Carter had raised a son who would soon turn his world upside down. Evelyn Carter was not the kind of woman who sought attention. Born in 1956 in a small Mississippi town, she grew up in the shadow of Jim Crow, where survival meant keeping your head down and your voice low. Her parents, sharecroppers who worked from dawn to dusk, taught her the value of resilience and the power of quiet dignity. Evelyn carried those lessons with her when she moved to Riverton, a mid-sized city in Ohio, in the late 1970s. She found work as a nurse's aide, a job that demanded long hours and endless patience. She married a mechanic named Clarence, and together they raised their only child, Marcus, in a modest two-bedroom house on the east side of town. Clarence passed away from a heart attack when Marcus was just 16, leaving Evelyn to raise her son alone. She did so with a fierce determination, instilling in him a sense of justice, a love for learning, and an unshakable belief in standing up for what was right. Marcus Carter was not like his mother in temperament. Where Evelyn was reserved, Marcus was bold, charismatic, and unafraid to challenge authority. By 2018, at the age of 35, he had become a rising star in Riverton's legal community. After graduating top of his class from Ohio State's law school, Marcus had returned to his hometown to work as a public defender, taking on cases that others deemed unwinnable. His reputation for meticulous preparation and unrelenting advocacy had earned him respect from judges and prosecutors alike. But Marcus was more than a lawyer. He was a man who carried his mother's quiet strength in his bones, and he had never forgotten the story she told him about the indignities she'd endured. When he heard about what happened to his mother at the diner, something shifted inside him. This wasn't just an insult. It was an assault, and he was determined to make Officer Hargrove answer for it. The incident at the diner wasn't the first time Evelyn had faced hostility in Riverton. The city, like many in the Midwest, had a complicated history with race. While it wasn't the overt segregation of the South, Riverton had its own unspoken rules. Neighborhoods divided by invisible lines, schools where Black students were disciplined more harshly, and a police department with a reputation for targeting people of color. Hargrove, a white officer in his late 40s, embodied the worst of that culture. He'd been disciplined twice for excessive force, both times against Black suspects, but each time he'd escaped serious consequences. His colleagues described him as old school, a term that often masked prejudice behind a veneer of tradition. To Hargrove, Evelyn Carter was just another Black woman who needed to be put in her place. He had no idea who she was or who she'd raised. Word of the incident spread quickly. A waitress, shaken by what she'd witnessed, told a coworker, who told a friend, who posted about it on social media. By the next morning, a grainy cell phone video of Hargrove pouring coffee on Evelyn had gone viral on X, sparking outrage across Riverton and beyond. The video showed Evelyn's calm response, her voice steady as she told Hargrove he'd regret his actions. It also captured the officer's dismissive laugh as he walked away, leaving Evelyn to dab at her soaked dress with napkins. The post, with hashtags like #JusticeForEvelyn and #RacistCop, racked up thousands of shares. Local activists organized a protest outside the police station, demanding Hargrove's suspension. But Evelyn herself remained silent, refusing interviews and staying out of the spotlight. She didn't need to speak. Marcus was already planning his next move. Marcus Carter sat in his small office, the video playing on a loop on his laptop. Each time he watched it, his jaw tightened. He knew his mother didn't want a fuss, but this wasn't about what she wanted. It was about what was right. Marcus had seen too many cases where police officers abused their power and walked away unscathed. He wasn't naive. He knew the system protected its own. But he also knew that Hargrove had made a critical mistake. He'd underestimated Evelyn Carter, and by extension, her son. Marcus began gathering evidence. He interviewed the waitress, who confirmed that Hargrove's action was deliberate. He tracked down other diners who'd witnessed the incident, collecting their statements. He filed a formal complaint with the police department's Internal Affairs Division, knowing it would likely go nowhere, but he wasn't relying on the department to deliver justice. Marcus had a bigger plan. The Riverton Police Department, under pressure from the viral video and growing protests, issued a statement claiming the incident was under investigation. Hargrove was placed on paid administrative leave, a move that only fueled public anger. Marcus knew that internal investigations often served to protect officers, not hold them accountable. He decided to take the case to civil court, filing a lawsuit against Hargrove and the department for assault and emotional distress. The complaint detailed not only the coffee incident but also Hargrove's history of misconduct, painting a picture of a pattern of racial bias. Marcus also reached out to a local journalist, Sarah Mitchell, who had a reputation for fearless reporting. He shared the witness statements and Hargrove's disciplinary record, which Sarah used to publish a scathing exposé in the Riverton Herald. The article, titled "Officer's Coffee Spill Was No Accident," reignited public outrage and put the department on the defensive. Hargrove, meanwhile, was unrepentant. He told colleagues the incident was blown out of proportion and claimed Evelyn had provoked him by giving him attitude. His union representative issued a statement defending him, calling the lawsuit a witch hunt. But the more Hargrove spoke, the worse he made things for himself. During a deposition, he struggled to explain why he'd approached Evelyn's table in the first place. His answers were evasive, and when pressed, he grew defensive, claiming he'd tripped and spilled the coffee by accident. The video contradicted his story, showing a deliberate tilt of his cup. Marcus, who conducted the deposition himself, remained calm but relentless, his questions exposing Hargrove's lies with surgical precision. By the end of the session, Hargrove was visibly shaken, realizing for the first time that he might not walk away unscathed. Evelyn, though, remained the eye of the storm. She went about her days as usual, working her shifts at the hospital and attending church on Sundays. When friends or coworkers asked about the incident, she'd smile and say, "Marcus is handling it." She didn't want revenge, she wanted accountability. She'd raised her son to believe that justice wasn't about loud gestures, but about steady, principled action. Still, the incident had taken a toll. Her hands trembled slightly when she poured her morning tea, and she avoided the diner on Main Street. She didn't tell Marcus about the nightmares, where she relived the moment the hot coffee hit her skin, or the quiet anger she felt at being humiliated in front of strangers. Evelyn had spent her life enduring slights and injustices, but this one felt different. It wasn't just about her. It was about every Black woman who'd been dismissed, disrespected, or dehumanized. As the lawsuit gained traction, Marcus uncovered more about Hargrove's history. A former colleague, now retired, revealed that Hargrove had a reputation for targeting Black residents during traffic stops and arrests. The colleague, speaking anonymously, described Hargrove as someone who enjoyed the power trip. Marcus also discovered a pattern of complaints against Hargrove that had been buried or dismissed by the department. Armed with this information, he amended the lawsuit to include a claim of systemic racism within the Riverton Police Department, arguing that Hargrove's actions were enabled by a culture of impunity. The amended complaint caught the attention of national civil rights organizations, which offered legal support and amplified the case on social media. Suddenly, Evelyn Carter's story was no longer just a local issue. It was a symbol of a larger fight. The trial began in the fall of 2019, drawing a packed courtroom and media coverage from across the state. Marcus, representing his mother, stood at the plaintiff's table, his presence commanding yet composed. Evelyn sat in the front row, her hands folded in her lap, her face unreadable. Hargrove, dressed in an ill-fitting suit, looked smaller without his uniform, his earlier bravado replaced by a nervous fidgeting. The prosecution's case was straightforward. Hargrove had intentionally assaulted Evelyn Carter, motivated by racial bias, and the department had failed to hold him accountable. Marcus presented the video, witness testimonies, and Hargrove's disciplinary record, methodically dismantling the defense's claim that the incident was an accident. When Evelyn took the stand, her testimony was brief but powerful. She described the burning pain of the coffee, the humiliation of the moment, and her decision to stay calm. "I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of seeing me break," she said. The defense tried to paint Evelyn as oversensitive, arguing that the incident was a minor mishap that had been exaggerated for political reasons. They questioned why she hadn't reported it immediately and suggested she was complicit in the media frenzy that followed. Marcus countered with a closing argument that left the courtroom silent. He spoke of his mother's life, her sacrifices, and the countless times she'd faced discrimination without complaint. "This wasn't just about coffee," he said. "It was about a man who thought he could degrade a black woman and face no consequences. He was wrong." The jury, after 2 days of deliberation, returned a verdict in Evelyn's favor, awarding her $500,000 in damages and holding the department liable for failing to supervise Hargrove. The courtroom erupted in applause, but Evelyn simply nodded, her eyes meeting Marcus's with quiet pride. Hargrove's career was over. The department, under pressure from the verdict and ongoing protests, fired him and implemented new training on racial bias. The case also sparked a broader reckoning in Riverton, with community leaders calling for reforms in policing and greater accountability. Marcus, now a local hero, continued his work as a public defender, taking on more cases involving police misconduct. He never spoke publicly about the case, letting his actions speak for him. Evelyn, meanwhile, donated a portion of the settlement to a local youth center, where she began volunteering, teaching young people about resilience and self-respect. She never returned to the diner, but she carried herself with the same quiet dignity she always had. Years later, in 2023, a young black woman approached Evelyn at the youth center. She'd seen the video of the incident and wanted to thank Evelyn for standing up to Hargrove. "You didn't just do it for yourself," the woman said. "You did it for all of us." Evelyn smiled and patted her hand. "I didn't do much," she said. "My son did the heavy lifting." But the truth was, Evelyn had done more than she realized. She'd raised a man who refused to let injustice stand, and in doing so, she'd changed Riverton forever.